You've taken up a job as a New York City window washer. Congratulations, it's an honorable profession. Sure, you can be performing death-defying feats of cleaning for a starting wage as little as $12 an hour. But underappreciated as you are, you have a vital job, and you're more committed to maintaining transparency than most world governments. On your first day, you faced a daunting challenge: cleaning the windows on the 47th floor of a New York City skyscraper. I hope you're not afraid of heights. But while you're busy with the thin Windex line between cleanliness and grime, disaster strikes. You lose your footing and tumble 472 feet to the unforgiving concrete below. You probably assume your next step is being scraped up and power washed into a gutter, but nope, you survived. You will live to wash windows another day. Seems far-fetched, right? But this actually happened to 37-year-old veteran New York window washer Alcides Moreno in 2017. We're going to tell you the incredible story of how he survived the seemingly unsurvivable today. First, let's talk about Moreno. He arrived from the US from Ecuador in the 1990s with his wife Rosario and his 3 children. This is a man who's truly committed to his job, and more than that, he downright loves it. When interviewed about his profession after his life-defining accident, he said, "I love to see the windows really clean. I liked the water and the soap, how you press the squeegee. We'd start at the top and clean all the way to the bottom. I loved it." It was with this intensely positive mindset that he and his younger brother, 30-year-old Edgar Moreno, took on the Solo Tower apartment block in Manhattan's Upper East Side. At 50 stories and 689 feet, it's a formidable structure, though still only the 71st tallest building in New York. The Moreno brothers took the elevator to the top floor with all their equipment. The roof was dizzyingly high, even for those experienced window washers. The temperature was freezing, the air was thin, but this was nothing unusual for this line of work, so they just got on with it. Alcides and Edgar Moreno climbed into their 16-foot wide, 1,250-pound cleaning platform and prepared for another honest day's work. But this wasn't just any other day. A nightmarish disaster was about to strike. When the 2 brothers climbed onto the platform, forgetting to first put on and fasten their safety harnesses, the powerful cables that held the whole operation in place came dangerously loose. First, the cable on the left side, the side where Edgar Moreno was standing, came free, causing the entire platform to droop on one side and fling Edgar off the platform entirely. Sadly, this isn't the inspiring tale of how 2 brothers survived a terrifying situation. Edgar fell 472 feet, reaching speeds of around 120 miles per hour, before landing in a narrow alley. He landed on a wooden fence, severing his body in 2 and killing him instantly. Edgar's death is one of the 420,000 deaths that occur through falling every single year. It's one of the most common accidental ways to die. But Alcides didn't have time to think about this. His mind was more focused on his own seemingly imminent mortality. His side of the scaffolding came loose and began to hurtle down toward the ground like a screaming comet. However, unlike the tragic end of his brother, firefighters found Alcides alive in the hunk of twisted metal that was once the window washing platform. Crouched down, fingers twisted in a death grip around the platform, having survived by virtue of not striking his head during the fall. According to witness reports, Alcides even attempted to stand. The first responders were amazed as they were baffled to find him alive, but Alcides was still in grave danger. He may have survived the fall, but it wasn't by much. While he was certainly luckier than Edgar, his injuries were nonetheless extensive and life-threatening. Alcides had suffered a traumatic head injury that left him with brain damage, as well as damage to his neck, spinal column, chest, and abdomen. He also had fractures to his right arm, ribs, and both legs. Alcides was practically on the edge of death. The firefighters slowly and gently handled him into the vehicle for a transport to a nearby hospital 4 blocks away. When Alcides arrived at the hospital, he was given extensive treatment for his injuries. He was put into an induced coma, and he had a catheter inserted into his brain to reduce dangerous swelling. The doctors cut open his abdomen in order to relieve the pressure on his organs. He was also transfused 24 pints of donated blood, which is around twice his entire blood volume. But the treatments didn't stop there. He was also given 19 pints of plasma, platelets, and a drug to stimulate blood clotting in order to reduce his life-threatening hemorrhaging. He was also given a tracheotomy surgery and a ventilator in his throat, as well as 9 different orthopedic surgeries. Alcides' condition was so fragile throughout most of this process that the doctors couldn't even move him onto the operating theater. When later discussing the nature of Alcides' recovery, Dr. Herbert Pardes, who was president and CEO of New York Presbyterian Hospital at the time, said said, "If you're looking for a medical miracle, this certainly qualifies." And Dr. Pardis wasn't exaggerating there either. According to the chief surgeon of New York Presbyterian, Dr. Philip Bari, the death rate from falling 3 stories is around 50%. At 10 stories, the amount of people who survive are statistically insignificant. Alcides was a complete statistical outlier. Alcides Moreno remained in his medically induced coma for 3 weeks. He finally spoke on December 7th of 2007 to Rosario, who'd remained in his room and kept him company throughout the recovery process. Because of the head trauma Alcides experienced, he didn't even remember the accident happening. He did, however, deduce that his brother had died. Still, in spite of his brother's tragic death, Alcides Moreno was lucky enough to be alive after the whole ordeal. After a few more spinal surgeries and another surgery to help reconstruct his abdominal wall, he'd almost fully recovered. Naturally, the authorities looked into what might have caused the accident in the first place. The investigations into the circumstances of the incident found that the platform and cables hadn't been properly maintained over time, and the new motorized cables responsible for lowering the platform down the side of the building hadn't been properly anchored to the top of the building. It was a perfect recipe for the worst-case scenario. Initially, the investigators also placed some of the responsibility for the accident on Alcides and Edgar, claiming that the fact that they weren't wearing their harnesses during the accident made them at least somewhat culpable for what happened. However, this line of reasoning was later dropped because the investigators couldn't prove that the brothers weren't just testing the platform before applying their harnesses and getting back on. Anyway, back to the story. The real question on everyone's mind right now is how Alcides Moreno survived falling 472 feet from the 47th floor of the Solo building. The answer is honestly still unclear. Many doctors and first responders believe that by all rights Alcides should be absolutely dead right now. But some possibilities can be found in science and in Moreno's basic window washer training. When asked about why he thought he was able to survive the ordeal, he credited the fact that he was trained to lay flat to the platform and cling onto it during his sudden descent toward the New York City streets below. The much larger surface area of the platform Alcides was clinging to likely offered air resistance that slowed the speed of his descent, compared to his brother. Edgar's relatively small surface area had him fire down toward the earth like a bullet with little resistance. The physics of air resistance gave Alcides a fighting chance against the forces of gravity. Some speculated that perhaps the platform bounced against one of the surrounding buildings, slowing the fall, though this was never conclusively proved. The platform itself may have also acted as a kind of buffer between the force of the crash and Alcides' body, both dampening the overall force and distributing it evenly across his body. Edgar, on the other hand, took the full force of the fall himself on the razor edge of a fence, essentially assuring catastrophic physical damage. Alcides and Edgar essentially provide perfect examples of ideal and nightmare scenarios for falling from a great height without a parachute. We could look at a few similar examples to see if they provide any answers for how someone could survive such an insane fall. Joshua Hansen, a bar owner from Wisconsin, drunkenly crashed out of the window of a Minneapolis hotel's 17th floor. Hansen suffered a broken leg and a collapsed lung but walked away fine from the hospital a week later. This is still a miraculous feat of survival, but Alcides fell 30 floors more, so it's a little difficult to compare the two. Likewise, Tim Stillwell is thankfully still well after falling from the roof of his apartment building in 2013. His fall was broken by the roof of a nearby building, allowing him to survive with some broken bones. While having a more solid scientific answer would certainly be more satisfying than maintaining the mystery, the fact is the greatest factor in surviving any insane fall is pure luck. There's no one solid logical reason that Alcides Moreno was able to survive his 47-story fall, baffling everyone from scientists to doctors to first responders. Alcides and Rosario attribute a lot of his tremendous luck to the grace of God, owing to the fact that Alcides, in the words of Rosario, has never wished anything bad on anyone. In the aftermath of the incident, Edgar Moreno was buried in the brothers' home country of Ecuador. In the few years following, Alcides struggled greatly with survivor's guilt. He'd been close with his brother his whole life, the two of them having lived together in New Jersey and worked as a team since the early 90s. Alcides said, "Losing him was a big deal for me. I believe I felt melancholic for about 3 years. That's how long it took me to recover and accept his death. It was like losing a child because he was younger than me." While nothing could bring back Alcides' brother, he did at least achieve some financial justice for the company that caused his death. Rather than implicating Alcides and Edgar in their own tragedy, a Manhattan Supreme Court judge ruled in their favor, finding Tractel, the company responsible for installing the safety features on the window washing platform, liable for poorly installing the motorized cables. They also found that the Solo building was liable for its inadequate safety features. As a result, the two entities settled the matter with Alcides out of court for a large sum of money. Alcides Morena has since moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and had a fourth child with Rosario. Morena said that the warm, dry air in Arizona is better for his bones, but he still misses the people of New York City. He no longer works for health reasons, but has maintained that he doesn't have a fear of heights because of the incident. Looking back on his experience, Alcides said, "I have all the scars on my body, and because of the back injuries, I can't run, only walk. I'm not like I used to be, but thank God I can walk. That's amazing for me." And Alcides has put his life and ability to walk to good use. In the years since his accident, he supported his children in going to college and taken part in 5K runs for charity. While he said that life could never truly be the same, he's regained around 80% of the person he used to be. And for someone who fell to what seemed like certain death from the top of a 50-story building, 80% is honestly pretty darn good. Thanks for watching this episode of The Infographics Show. If you're looking forward to falling for even more of our content about amazing survival situations, why not check out Plane Crash Leads to Unbelievable Survival Story and survival tips that will one day save your life. In the meantime, watch your step. It's a long way down from here.